12-year-old Jennifer Renee Odom was a 7th grader at Thomas E. Waitman Middle School in Wesley Chapel, Florida, in 1993. She played the clarinet in the school band and was also a barefoot water skier who often placed high in tournaments. She was the skier who climbed to the top of the human pyramid, gliding atop the water. Jennifer was born on August 25, 1980. She was the eldest daughter of Renee Converse and stepdad Clark Converse. She had a 9-year-old sister, Jessica Ann Odom, and was the granddaughter of Jim and Margie Denny. They lived in St. Joseph, a small community near Dade City, Florida. Jennifer and Jessica had a rabbit called Beanie. Jennifer also absolutely loved her Springer Spaniel, Gypsy. The two sisters built forts, rode four-wheelers, and spent summer days swimming in the creek behind their house on the family's 15-acre property. It was a crisp morning on Friday, February 19, 1993, when Jennifer Odom put on her white jeans and a white turtleneck to get ready for school. She put on a red cashmere sweater, a gift from her grandmother, over her shoulder-length chestnut-colored hair. She was slim and tan due to spending a lot of time outdoors. On that same morning, after lacing up her pair of black boots, she got into the car with her mother. The two drove 200 yards up the winding Lime Rock driveway to wait for the school bus near their mailbox. Jennifer climbed onto the bus and took her usual spot on the back seat so she and her mother could see each other until Renee, following behind, turned left to head to work. After school, at around 3 p.m., Jennifer stepped off her school bus, waved goodbye to her friends, and started walking the short 200 yards to her home. At about 4 p.m., Jennifer's sister arrived at their home from school to find it locked and unable to enter. She then called their mother to tell her that her big sister was not home yet. Renee Converse then realized Jennifer must not have made it home, so she called Jennifer's best friend, Michelle, who stated that she saw Jennifer exit the bus and begin walking home. Jennifer's mother knew something was very wrong and called the police. Within hours, deputies launched a wide-scale search, and a search party of about 400 volunteers was formed to help scour about 60 square miles of countryside. Family, friends, neighbors, and other volunteers searched for Jennifer, and law enforcement was equipped with police dogs to comb the rolling groves, pastures, and woods surrounding the tiny Pasco County town of Dade City. Every law enforcement agency in the Bay Area was looking for a blue truck that was seen in the area by some of her classmates, children riding the school bus with Jennifer. They remembered seeing an older light blue, unknown model pickup truck slowly following Jennifer down the road in the direction in which she was walking. The children described it as having a silver-painted rear bumper, not chrome, and a trailer hitch with wires hanging and pipes, or a ladder in the back. The driver was described by the children as a white male in his 40s with shoulder-length brown hair. The blue truck became the focus of the search parties, as investigators believed that the driver may have been involved in Jennifer's disappearance. As a last resort to find the truck, the FBI, as well as Hernando and Pasco County Sheriff's personnel, worked from a dock in a boathouse as divers searched Lake Rovita for the vehicle. 6 days after Jennifer vanished, on Thursday, February 25, 1993, a man and a woman searching an abandoned orange grove about 10 miles north of Jennifer's school bus stop found her badly decomposed nude body. Her body was found near a horse trail off Powell Road, south of Brooksville, amid a cluster of pine trees in the orange grove. She was found viciously assaulted and had suffered blunt force trauma to her head. Detectives said she likely lost her life there in the woods not long after her disappearance. Hernando County Sheriff Al Ninhays stated, "We are not exactly sure how long her abductor kept her captive or when exactly the slaying took place, but we are relatively confident it took place in that field." Jennifer's clothing was never found, neither the blue truck nor its driver. While Jennifer's family was still busy with her funeral arrangements, country music star Vince Gill was scheduled to sing at the local Strawberry Festival on Monday, March 1, 1993. Jennifer's stepfather, Clark Converse, said the girls had looked forward to Gill's performance for weeks, hoping they could get him to autograph photos before the concert. Clark Converse and Jessica went to the festival to fulfill Jennifer's wish that Gill autograph a photo in which Jennifer and her sister had posed with the singer at a previous concert on January 10th. Between shows, festival Vice President Joe Newsom took the 3 snapshots to Gil, who was eating dinner. Jennifer's stepdad had asked that Gil autograph one for Jessica, one for Jennifer, and one for both girls. Newsom said afterward, "I told Gil this young lady had been slayed, and her dad was outside." Gil replied that he remembered hearing about the incident. He, who also had a young daughter, autographed the photos, writing on one to Jennifer, "May God be with you." As both Gil and Newsom wept, Gil then went to the night's second show. Before singing the last song, he told the audience about Jennifer. "I'm going to try to get through this the best I can," he said, his voice cracking. Gil sang his Grammy-winning hit, "I Still Believe in You," and dedicated it to Jennifer, who was tragically robbed of her life. Midway through the song, with tears running down his face, Gil asked the crowd to help him finish. Nearly 15,000 voices joined in. Radio personality Jeff Moore stood backstage and looked out at thousands of tear-stained faces. He said, "It was heart-ripping," he said afterward. Unfortunately, with no one in the community providing investigators with useful information, her case went unsolved for 13 months. Before Jennifer was abducted, on January 16, 1992, a 17-year-old girl was kidnapped as she got off a school bus in north-central Pasco County. She was found in a pool of blood behind an abandoned house, brutally attacked, assaulted, and beaten. Sheriff Ninhai said she suffered injuries to her head and skull that were very significant. She survived, but her life was forever changed, as she was paralyzed on her left side. Ninhai said she was a former honor roll student and a track and field participant and was a true victim. She was not engaged in a high-risk lifestyle. Law enforcement was able to collect DNA from the crime scene at the time, and since there were similarities between what happened to Jennifer and the unnamed girl, detectives believed the cases may be related. Both victims were adolescent girls who were abducted after getting off the school bus in Pasco County, taken to a remote field, assaulted, and abandoned with the belief they would succumb to their injuries. The other victim was found just a few miles from where Jennifer's body was found. After a series of blind alleys, the police called upon psychic Nancy Meyer, 16 months after the incident, to assist in finding the person responsible for what happened. Nancy Meyer is a psychic from Pennsylvania who has been working with police around the country for decades. According to Nancy, she had consulted in more than 300 criminal investigations and had offered critical clues more than 80% of the time. Nancy believed that 2 men were involved in taking Jennifer's life. She described them as white, muscular mechanics, and she said one may be a smoker with a heavy cough. The crime scene photographs were classified, therefore Nancy Meyer was not allowed to see it. Despite this, she was able to visualize 2 men in detail. She was taken to the site where Jennifer's body was found, and Nancy pointed out that there were belongings in a nearby area that had not yet been discovered. She was able to describe several of Jennifer's items that were still missing, including her cousin's clarinet case with the letters LO on them. She continued to give information about the perpetrators in the hope of solving the case. Detective Carlos Douglas of the Hernando County Sheriff's Office said, "Nancy Meyer was extremely accurate on some things that led us to look in other areas that we had not thought of, so we obtained a lot of information from what she had to offer." On December 2, 1994, Jennifer's unsolved case was aired on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries on national TV. After the show aired, more than 50 phone tips and even more investigative leads from around the country arrived by mail at the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. A spokesman of the Sheriff's Office said, "The show did for us what we wanted it to do. It got us some more exposure." Despite the new exposure, former Hernando County Sheriff's Major Gary Zorn Smith, who oversaw the investigation in its early years, said the investigators were stumped. He said there was a strong possibility the crime would go unsolved, and what's even worse is that if we solve it, it may take another crime to do it, he said at the time. Approximately 2 years after Jennifer's body was found, on Thursday, January 5, 1995, a couple hunting for scrap metal in a rural area of Hernando County discovered Jennifer's missing book bag and clarinet case. It was found several miles from the location of her body. Police were able to lift fingerprints from her backpack and clarinet case, from what is believed to be the person responsible. Unfortunately, there was never a hit in the database for a suspect matching these fingerprints. Over the years, the case garnered national attention and haunted the Tampa Bay region. Thousands of dollars in reward money offered for tips went unclaimed. Detectives logged tens of thousands of hours chasing leads, and Jennifer's family waited for news as the years turned to decades. Jennifer's mother, Renee Converse, wondered if it was somebody Jennifer knew. Clark Converse, Jennifer's stepfather, added, "There is a real chance that the person who did it is somebody we have contact with. If they catch someone, we're going to be thrown into the spotlight. Learning how to deal with a trial and confronting this person is going to throw us to square one in learning to deal with this." Renee said she cries a bit more each year. "The reality is that Jennifer is gone and will never be in our lives again. Nothing is going to change that." She also said that the family is thankful for what they do know. "We are blessed that we have this much closure. We are not looking for her. We know where she is. It is going to be a bittersweet finale." She could still picture her 12-year-old daughter, slim and sun-kissed, waving goodbye at the back window of the Pasco County school bus. It was the last time she would see her brown-eyed firstborn girl. In 2015, Detective George Lundgren was contacted by Pasco County Sheriff Chris Nacco, who stated that new technology had led to a solid lead in the 1992 case in which the teenage girl was found alive. It was the case investigators believed was linked to Jennifer's. The odds of finding another match, Nacco said, was 1 in 7.7 nonillion, a number with 30 zeros. Lundgren commented, "I think DNA is going to be a big part of Jennifer's case, as it is with any of the old cases, because items were collected. It is just now that the technology has advanced." The biological evidence found in the investigation of the 1992 case was tested before February 2015, and detectives got a full DNA profile. Investigators used a DNA procedure known as familial searching, which allows law enforcement to find a suspect by comparing male DNA left at the scene with that of family members. The shortfall of a standard DNA search is that a suspect's genetic fingerprint must be on file in the offender database for law enforcement to make a match. Sheriff Ninhai said, "Until 2015, there were no leads on that particular piece of DNA." The Florida Department of Law Enforcement compared the DNA to local DNA to see if there were any close matches, which would be a family member. The sheriff said they found the DNA match, that of Jeffrey Crum, who was in jail at the time. Investigators then obtained DNA samples from Crum's brother, father, and grandfather. A direct comparison between the DNA found in the victim and that of Crum's father found a match, leading to the indictment of Jeffrey Crum. Crum was already serving 2 life sentences for the assault and kidnapping case out of Pasco County that was prosecuted around 2015. In February 2015, the arrest and sentence of Crum gave Detective Lloyd Grant a new resolve, and Jennifer's family new hope that the person responsible would be caught. Detectives then began an intensive investigation and interviewed everyone they could find for the next several years who may have been associated with Crum around the time Jennifer was kidnapped. This information was turned over to the state attorney, and the facts and circumstances were turned over to a grand jury. On July 27, 2023, a month shy of what would have been Jennifer's 43rd birthday, officials announced that they had finally made an arrest in the case, and prosecutors would seek capital punishment against the accused. State Attorney Bill Glass made the announcement during a press conference, just after the Hernando County Sheriff's Office announced that it had charged the 61-year-old Jeffrey Norman Crum with the kidnapping, assault, and slaying of Jennifer 30 years before. Glass also said, "I have confidence that we have the right person and we have the right aggravators in this particular case to treat it as a capital punishment case. This is every parent's nightmare. This is the thing that keeps parents up at night, worried about their children." Detective George Lundgren, who had spent years investigating Jennifer's case, said, Shock is probably the best word to describe the reaction of Jennifer's family when he told them about the arrest. He said he did it quickly because, "I did not want to get emotional. It is a lot for them to take in and absorb, and I can imagine it is going to take some time before it really sinks in." According to Sheriff Ninhuis, every viable lead for the past 30 years, including those that came from the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, or private citizens, was thoroughly investigated. He added that the investigation never stopped. Hundreds of items were tested and retested every time new technology came out in the hope of finding the smoking gun to solve this case. The sheriff added that countless detectives, sworn law enforcement personnel, civilian tipsters, and countless others have had a hand in this investigation. The minute Crum was identified as a suspect in the case, Detective Lundgren went to work, putting a mosaic together like a puzzle. "I can tell you that other than the conviction in a previous case, there was no other significant piece of the puzzle. Every other piece of the puzzle that brought us to this point consisted of tiny fragments that gave the state attorney and the grand jury enough confidence to indict Crum." He also said that they are searching for additional victims, as authorities fear Crum may be responsible for other crimes. A picture of him from 1993 was released, asking that anyone who recognizes him from the 1980s and 1990s contact Sheriff Ninhuis. "We urge anyone who had interactions with this individual, has information on other crimes he may have committed, or may have themselves been a victim of Jeffrey Crum, to reach out to the Hernando County Sheriff's Office and speak to our cold case unit." Despite keeping a lot of information close to the vest, authorities did say that in 1992, Crum worked in construction as a drywall installer and lived on Somerset Lane in Spring Hill, the Pasco County area where Jennifer was abducted from. His residence was about 21 miles from the place where Jennifer was last seen, and 12 miles from where her body was found. Officials also say that at that time, he drove a blue truck. During Thursday's press conference on July 27, 2023, Sheriff Ninhuis kept reiterating that Crum was not on the investigators' radar until the past few years. Records showed that Crum has a significant history of convictions for violent crimes. The sheriff said Crum had been arrested in the early 1980s for armed robbery in Hillsborough County. In 1985, he was charged with kidnapping, assault, and false imprisonment in Hillsborough County. He was arrested by Tampa police in 1987 for carrying a concealed weapon. In 1988, he was caught again carrying a concealed weapon and was charged with aggravated assault. In 1998, he was arrested for domestic violence in Hernando County 3 times. In 2001, he was arrested for a violation of probation in Hillsborough County. He was arrested a few years later for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in Hernando County. In 2015, he was arrested in Pasco County for aggravated assault on a child under the age of 12. Sheriff Ninhuis stated, "He is a bad individual who enjoyed violence." Crum is already serving 2 life sentences for the assault and kidnapping case out of Pasco County that was prosecuted around 2015. He is currently in the Hernando County Jail, and Judge Kurt E. Hitzman ordered him to be held without bond and appointed a public defender to represent him. Communities in Pasco and Hernando counties were on edge after Jennifer Odom's kidnapping and slaying back then. They shared their thoughts and feelings after the news of the arrest was announced. Jeannie Cameron, the general manager at Papa Joe's Italian restaurant in Brooksville, said she and others in the community remember hearing about her disappearance all too well. "So, we all remember hearing about her disappearance, Jennifer's, and about the blue truck, and everybody was on alert, looking. I think the bottom line was finding out who did it and getting him off the streets so that another family doesn't have to be tormented. Because I really feel like the whole community was tormented until they found out the answer." Joseph Gioratan, the owner of Papa Joe's Italian restaurant, said, "Back then, 30 years ago, as a parent, I was very angry that someone could do something like that to a child and then leave her there in the middle of nowhere." Jessica Ellis said she went to Waitman Middle School with Jennifer and played in the same clarinet section in band class. "I would say we saw each other a lot. We weren't like close friends, but we knew a lot of the same people. We rode the school bus every day, and I just remember her always being nice with me and everyone else that rode her school bus that knew her. You know, a lot of us are parents ourselves now, and the fact that anyone would do this to a child makes me hold my 5-year-old a lot tighter now. Grief and fear followed in the days, months, and years after Jennifer lost her life. The arrest of Crum is closure for many in the community. Todd Lampe, a man born in 1980 in Mississippi, emerged from a rather mysterious early life, with scant information available about his formative years. Nonetheless, one thing is certain. In 2002, he made a life-altering decision to leave behind his hometown in search of a fresh start. The picturesque coastal town of Hyanges, Massachusetts, became his new haven, a place where he would craft a new chapter in his life. People who had the privilege of knowing Todd often spoke of him in glowing terms. Described as vibrant and charismatic, Todd was a magnetic force within the community, radiating positivity that drew people towards him. His welcoming nature and infectious energy left a lasting impact on those he encountered. He was, without a doubt, a beacon of optimism in the lives of many. Adding to his identity, Todd was also the proud father of 3 beautiful daughters, each born to a different mother. Despite the inherent complexities of co-parenting, Todd remained steadfastly devoted to his daughters. He tirelessly worked to provide for them, channeling his every spare moment into showering them with love and attention. Nevertheless, Todd's life was not an unbroken chain of sunshine and rainbows. He had encountered his fair share of adversity and run-ins with the law. However, Todd was resolute in his refusal to allow his past to define him. He possessed an indomitable spirit and was determined to create a better life, not just for himself, but for his loved ones as well. Tragically, the course of Todd's life took a dark and unforeseen turn on February 27, 2011. At the age of 31, Todd was enjoying a tranquil evening at his Hyannis home. His girlfriend Tayasia was present, as were the mother of one of his daughters, along with her mother, Deborah Cook Warren. Curtis Collins, a close friend of Todd, arrived, and the group gathered for dinner. Following their meal, they settled into the bedroom to watch a basketball game. However, this peaceful evening was violently disrupted by the sudden sound of gunshots that reverberated throughout the house. Todd's screams pierced the air, prompting Tayasia to rush to the bedroom in a state of panic. What she witnessed there would haunt her for the rest of her life. Todd, standing with blood pouring from his body, had been shot. She hurried to his side, but it was tragically too late. The tranquility of the evening had descended into a horrifying nightmare. In a state of panic, Curtis called 911, and soon after, the police and paramedics arrived at the scene. Tragically, they discovered that Todd had already succumbed to his injuries. The investigators meticulously combed every inch of the house, searching for clues to unravel this disturbing mystery. Their examination led them outside the front bedroom window, where they discovered 3 .22 caliber federal ammunition shell casings, indicating that the shots had been fired from outside. But that wasn't all they found. A sweet potato with a flat cut on one end was also discovered, suggesting it had been used as a makeshift silencer to dampen the sound of the gunshots. The detectives couldn't help but draw a connection to a scene from the HBO crime drama series The Wire, where a sweet potato had been used as a silencer to mask a gunshot. As their investigation continued, they found a black Boost mobile cell phone in the grass near the corner of the house, which belonged to Curtis. He explained that he had lost it during the chaotic aftermath of the shooting. A day after this tragic incident, the autopsy report was released, revealing that Todd had suffered 3 gunshot wounds, resulting in fractured ribs and lung injuries, ultimately leading to his untimely demise. This devastating news only fueled the determination of detectives Jason Laborer and Thomas Chevalier to bring justice to Todd and his grieving family. The 2 detectives wasted no time and called Curtis in for questioning. Curtis provided his account of the events leading up to the shooting, admitting to using his blue Sanyo phone. However, during the investigation, suspicions arose when the detectives reviewed Curtis's phone records. The call history on the phone didn't align with the call records obtained from the telecommunications company. Calls made and received by Curtis from a particular number just before and after the shooting were mysteriously missing from his phone's log. It appeared that Curtis had deliberately deleted them, raising further doubts. Their inquiry led the detectives to a man named Tavares Hampton, the individual Curtis had been communicating with before and after the shooting. Hampton was already entangled in legal troubles and was being monitored with a GPS tracking bracelet at the time of the shooting. The detectives delved into the data recorded by the bracelet and uncovered shocking evidence. The GPS data indicated that Hampton had been in close proximity to Todd's home precisely at the time of the shooting. Days after Todd's murder, detectives Jason and Thomas saw an opportunity to extract answers when Hampton was arrested for an unrelated matter. However, their hopes were dashed as Hampton remained tight-lipped and uncooperative. Their persistence finally bore fruit on March 18, 2011, when two workers from Sullivan Engineering stumbled upon a firearm in the murky waters of the mill pond in the Marston's Mills section of Barnstable. Upon examining the weapon, the detectives were astonished to find that it contained live rounds of the same caliber as the spent shell casings found at the scene of Todd's shooting. It was almost certainly the murder weapon, but despite this crucial discovery, the investigation into Todd's death appeared to stall. Nevertheless, the detectives remained vigilant, particularly in their pursuit of Hampton. They were convinced that he was involved in some capacity and were unwavering in their commitment to uncovering the truth, regardless of how much time had passed. In 2012, a significant breakthrough occurred in Todd's murder case. Detectives conducted a DNA analysis on a potato found at the crime scene. The results revealed a mixture of two human DNA samples, with one belonging to a man. They obtained Hampton's DNA to make a comparison with the sample found on the potato. Unfortunately, progress in the case came to a halt until a stroke of luck in 2016. In October of that year, detectives observed Hampton spotting phlegm in a puddle and quickly collected it for analysis. In 2018, the detectives received even more incriminating evidence against Hampton. GPS tracking data showed that on the night of February 28, 2011, Hampton had made a stop at the mill pond in Marston's Mills, just 23 feet from where the firearm was used in Todd's shooting. Furthermore, the analysis of the phlegm yielded results indicating a high probability that the DNA on the potato found at the crime scene matched Hampton's. With this compelling body of evidence, it was evident that Hampton had a direct connection to the crime. On February 24, 2023, justice finally caught up with Hampton. He was apprehended and charged with murder and assault with a deadly weapon in relation to Todd's death. On the 12th anniversary of Todd's tragic demise, which fell on February 27, 2023, Hampton appeared in court, where he pleaded not guilty. He was ordered to be held without bail, pending his probable cause hearing scheduled for April 5, 2023. A few days later, on March 7, 2023, Curtis, who had been considered a potential accomplice, was also taken into custody and charged with one count of murder. He appeared in court the following day and pleaded not guilty to all charges. The community held on to a glimmer of hope that justice would finally be served for Todd, bringing closure to a case that had spanned over a decade. The road to justice had been long and arduous, but the persistence of detectives and the strength of evidence had brought them closer to unveiling the truth behind Todd's tragic death. On the 18th, 1981, two delivery men aged 9-14 discovered Rachel Zendos's body in Camaro, California's carport. They made this discovery while making deliveries. Rachel lived with two young daughters aged 1 and 2 in her home, which was located nearby the carport she used as storage. Rachel attended college. An autopsy determined that she was attacked and strangled to death. Investigators discovered that Rachel went out for dinner and hired two babysitters when returning from an evening out, then drove the group home. Officials from Rachel's home believe she took her life when she returned to her vehicle and attempted to exit it. Detectives of the sheriff's office conducted their own investigation until all leads had been exhausted, eventually closing it 11 months after Rachel died. Although an identical crime had occurred near her residence on 11 December 1981. Lisa Gandek, 21, an Oxnard retail worker located 10 miles west of Camaro, was at Port Hueneme Naval Base nightclub after enjoying an evening with friends. Lisa was taken home to her residence around 11:30 a.m. At around 3 o'clock a.m., Lisa's neighbor called police to report and fire at Lisa's residence. Oxnard Fire Department extinguished any lingering flames before searching the scene for any victims of any sort. Lisa was found strangled, and her body found in the tub, along with those of Rachel, also found strangled. Each case was investigated separately until 2002, when new information surfaced about each case at once. The suspect DNA collected at Rachel's murder scene was submitted to the FBI's DNA index system, that is combined. However, this search proved fruitless. However, in 2004, investigators working Lisa's murder case informed the Ventura County Sheriff's Office that DNA tests indicated a possible connection between both cases, although their results weren't what was anticipated. As no suspect was identified through DNA tests, the investigation was closed in September. In December, however, Ventura County Cold Case Unit initiated a line investigation using genetic genealogy, an increasingly popular technique to identify potential biological relatives through advanced DNA tests. New leads provided new leads with further DNA evidence which identified Tony Garcia of Oxnard as being responsible for Rachel Zenas and Lisa Gandek's deaths, with him being arrested on February 7th at Nard, California. Sheriff Freihoff noted that Garcia, born in Roswell, New Mexico, and stationed at Point Mugu near Oxnard. After being discharged in 1980, he remained in the region teaching karate classes, as well as taking lessons himself for some time after being called up again for duty in 1983. At present, the suspect has remained unknown for more than 4 decades. Sheriff's Office Chief Benitez confirmed they identified some commonalities between victim and suspect, yet refused to discuss specifics on what those were. Benitez indicated that Lisa traveled from Connecticut for an initially 2-day visit, with the intention of visiting an acquaintance from the U.S. Navy. Ultimately, she decided to relocate there shortly before her death, although it is unknown whether Garcia was one of them, and therefore whether Lisa knew him prior to visiting Oxnard. Ventura County District Attorney Eric Nasarenko announced on March 8 that, after nearly 4 years, justice has finally come for Rachel Zass and Lisa Gandek and their families. As the case illustrates, charges can be filed at any time without regard to statute of limitations. Ventura County Sheriff's Office, District Attorney's Bureau of Investigation, and Oxnard Police Department are to be thanked for continuing the search for Rachel or Lisa's killer. Investigators are currently exploring whether Garcia could have committed further crimes, and they've appealed for public support in this matter.